not doing this for 2 weeks, I feel like I've unlearned everything on how to set up my camera and how to talk. So we'll see how this is going to go. Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. Welcome to my bi-weekly book ramblings and at the same time my February wrap-up. And I have no idea where February went because didn't it just start? I didn't even realize that it is already 2 weeks since my last video, so I nearly missed recording this video. So since it's my February wrap-up, a quick summary of February, then I'll briefly talk about the books that I've read in the first part, but I'm not going into detail since I've talked about them during my last bi-weekly book ramblings, so I'll link that up there. And then I talk about the books that I've read since then, so in the last 2 weeks in particular. And for those I go into a bit more detail because there were some really good books there. I'm still in the middle of one book, but I'm including this into my February wrap-up. I actually want to read one more book that I'm hoping to get done over the weekend, especially since I'm on PTO the coming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so I actually have time on Monday to finish it. It's a quick one. I'm not including this in my stats though, so there might be one book more and a couple of pages more to what I'm saying. But I've read 11 books so far. Again, one I'm still in the middle of. One of those was a DNF. All of those add up, including the 108 pages that I read for the DNF book, is 3,960 pages, which is more than double than what I read in January. So I'm kind of back to where I need to be or where I want to be, which is awesome. I participated in February She Wrote, which was organized by Literature and Lo-Fi Ben. If you have not watched any of his videos, you should definitely check those out. He has some amazing reviews, and in general, he's just a great person, so definitely go check out his channel. And I have to say, in the month of February, 8 of the 11 books were from female authors. Well, yeah, 8 books were from female authors, but it adds up to 6 female authors. So I read multiple books from the same authors in February. That's what I'm trying to say. In general, I read 1 horror, 1 nonfiction, and all the rest was fantasy. So just real quick summary of the beginning of February. I read Roadwork by Stephen King, which was a buddy read together with Jake from The Bookish Drummer, who just celebrated his BookTube birthday, by the way. So congratulations, Jake, for 1 year on BookTube. We are continuing our Richard Bachman's read along. We will continue that, and we've picked up a few people along the way, so definitely check those out if you're interested in. Then I finished the HBR's 10 must-reads of 2022. It's a nonfiction book. It's a collection of articles that you also can find on the Harvard Business Review. I had a handful of those that I found really, really good. They were mostly about diversity, inclusion, equality versus equity, how to, help companies with reaching their goal of being more inclusive, not diverse, very different thing. And yeah, I enjoyed those. There were some where I was just not interested in the topic necessarily, and some that I didn't care about too much. And then I read book 1 in the Adjacent Monsters series by Luke Tarzian, which is The World Maker Parable, I don't know how to pronounce this, I'm sorry. Book 1 is actually more a novella. It's 100 and a little bit pages, and you can get it for free if you sign up for Luke Tarzian's newsletter. The other one that I already talked about was Dead Rockstar by Lila Lawson. I loved it, and I'm talking about book 2 in just a second. What I finished since last we talked, and the first book of that is First Writer's Call by Kristen Britton, which is book 2 in the Green Rider series, and also then with that the second book in our Green Rider read along. So and I actually partially listened to it as an audiobook, and I partially read it, and I actually really loved the narrator. The narrator uses some Scottish accents as part of the story, which I thought was very fitting for some of the characters. And no, it was a great narration. I really enjoyed it. The live show for this is scheduled for March 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 11 a.m. Pacific, I think. I'm excited to have Kate, Stephanie, and Amanda on the live show with me again, and we are going to talk about First Writer's Call, and I'm really excited about that one because we had some thoughts in our live show for book 1 on how this will continue, so I definitely want to hear if it met their expectations. The other one that I finished was the Worldbreaker Requiem, which is book 2 in the Adjacent Monsters series, and I think it's only 2. I'm not sure if this is going to be a trilogy, actually. I don't know, I'm sorry. I read this because I was part of the Escapist book tours for Luke Tarzian's book. So there were a bunch of Instagrammers and book bloggers and book reviewers in general who posted within a week their reviews of the book. And I posted mine on Instagram on the 20th, I think. So you can go over to my Instagram if you want to check this out and see what I posted there. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this whole story because it's just so different from anything that I've read in my entire life. And I don't even know how to explain this. So I definitely recommend checking out Luke Tarzian's newsletter so you can get book 1. Again, it's 100 and a little bit pages. Although it sounds short, I'm telling you, it will take you longer to read this. Book 2 is 250, close to something like that. And it takes you a lot longer than you think to read this. And it's really fascinating because the writing style, the prose, is similar to how it feels being stuck in a dream and in a nightmare in this case, to be very specific, because it's a dark fantasy series. There's a lot going on with hearing voices in one's head and dreaming things and going back in time and being in the body of someone else. In general, the whole premise of the story of our main character trying to prove himself to his family, also a rather dark background. And the female main character, same thing. She did something that caused her to spend her life in darkness, and throughout the book it gets revealed what it is, essentially. And it is not a straightforward book. You really have to think about, okay, what's happening right now? Because they are like dream jumps, they are time jumps, and it's not immediately obvious how those fit together. So you definitely learn things as you read through the story, and as things are revealed, you're like, oh my goodness. Okay, I did not see this coming. Once you realize how all of these storylines and how all of these plot pieces belong together and why certain things are happening, Luke Tarzian did an amazing job in pulling them apart the way he did and being able to merge them back together. I have no idea if this makes any sense. And I'm telling you, just go out, read this. The next book that I read was book 2 in the Dead Rockstar series. So I read Dead Rockstar book 1 a little bit early in this month, and then I read book 2, The Wolfden, in anticipation of its release on February 22nd. Those two books were kindly sent to me by the publisher Parliament Books. This is one similar to the Adjacent Monster series. I don't know if I would have found these books otherwise if the publisher wouldn't have reached out to me, so I'm really excited about that. Those two books, or this series in general, is an urban fantasy with a little bit of mystery and a little bit of romance sprinkled in. And if I say romance, I don't mean Sarah J. Maas type romance. It is decent, so there's not a whole lot of smut going on. It's not the main part of the plot. It's a sideline of it. In that series in general, it's about Stormy, who just got out of a divorce. Her husband is a real douchebag, and she kind of struggles just in general with her life. And, you know, she has kind of a job that she is okay with. She just goes there because she needs the money. She struggles financially. And then she spends her nights essentially drinking wine alone in her trailer. And yeah, her life sucks. But she is a big fan of an 80s rock band. By the way, if you like 80s rock bands, that series is also really interesting for you because there are a lot of references in there. She tries out that spell that is on the record of that rock band's album that people say brings back the main singer from that band who died a couple of years back, like 20 years back or something. Obviously, you know, people tried, but it never worked, blah, blah, blah. And she tries and it works. And then all hell breaks loose. So in those two books, you learn how she was able to do that and witchcraft going on. So it's an urban fantasy with witchcraft going on and necromancy and a little bit other things. You get to meet the rockstar. You get to hear his side of the story. You learn more about Stormy. And it's just a fun, really entertaining 2 books. And I think it's going to be a trilogy with a 3rd book coming out later this year. It's more character-driven story. I love Stormy Spooner. I love her character growth over the 2 books, how she matures, how she gets over the divorce and all those kind of things because of the situation that she is in. I really like the environment that she is in. It's a realistic situation, you know, and a little bit Southern flair in there. There's a lot of snark in there, so be prepared for a little bit of language as well. Overall, so entertaining, really well written. I love the plot pieces and how they come together. Book 2 is even better than book 1. Actually even ordered the paperbacks from the publisher because I want to have them on my shelves, and the covers are pretty neat as well. The next book that I read is book 3 in the Winter Night trilogy. That is The Winter of the Witch, and I apologize for all the fans of the series. Book 1 was by far my favorite. Book 2, I gave 4 stars, and this I ended up giving 3 stars. Just because I didn't care about the plot really anymore. I didn't care about the characters anymore. There were some interesting decisions that Catherine Arden made. Not that I don't mind things like character death, important character deaths, but if they happen pretty, like, out of nowhere, I'm confused, especially if it's an important character. There is a smut scene in here that I completely did not understand why that would even be a thing. I mean, it was fine. I like the Russian base of the story. I like the Russian folklore. I continue to like the prose and the writing style. I just didn't care about the character or the plot or anything else. So that's why I ended up giving it 3 stars, which I'm kind of sad about because I was really excited about the story and the ending and whatnot, and at one point I just didn't care anymore. And I still like book 1, and I know I rated book 1 very highly in my 2021, you know, overall favorite fantasy ratings, and I still agree with that. I probably, if I would reread it, I would read just book 1 as a standalone and ignore book 2 and 3, if that makes any sense. And then I completely squirreled. I don't know what happened. I mean, Dead Roxanne, the Wolfden, was already not part of my February plan at all, although I'm really excited to read it, and similar with that series. So then I picked up The Wolf of Oren-Yaro by K.S. Veloso, who is a female author, also of February. She wrote, fit very nicely in there. She lives in Canada now, but she grew up in the Philippines. So this story has actually a lot of Asian inspiration included in it. And this is one of those books where I think it's completely underrated on BookTube. And I mean, in general, it has a 3.6 rating, I think, on Goodreads, which I do not understand. Although, well, I should say with a caveat, I do understand, because this is not an everybody's darling type of book. But I think it's not represented enough on BookTube. I've seen one review of this book in the past. I've seen no one else reviewing it. I've seen people buying it, but I have not seen anyone actually reading it or talking about it, doing a review, whatever. So I picked this up on a whim because, you know, I just needed something a bit more epic after reading those urban fantasy books. Sometimes those things happen, and that's exactly why I wanted to, you know, slow down with some of my TBRs and whatnot to do exactly that. So this is the first book in the Chronicles of the Bitch Queen. It's about Queen Tyan, who ruled her empire without her husband, the king. He ran away from her 5 years ago and just left her alone, ruling the world alone. And she's doing an okay job, not really. She has issues. There's a lot of political intrigue going on. She's always trying to keep everybody, you know, happy and at bay and whatnot. And the reason why she's called the Bitch Queen is because she is seen as, well, bitchy. And I know if you are a woman, this is something you're like, oh yeah, we've heard it so often. If as soon as a woman is assertive, she is seen as aggressive and a bitch, but here we are. So yes, it plays a little bit around that as well. But what I really liked about it is that aspect of she is seen as a really fierce, aggressive leader, but everything around her starts falling apart in her kingdom. Again, her king ran away and people are blaming her for that, even though it was not her fault at all. But then all of a sudden, she receives a letter from him saying, hey, I want to meet you. I'm in the other kingdom over there, you know, across the ocean, and I want to talk with you and I want to figure things out. And everybody tells her not to go, but she decides to go with a small group of people. And that's kind of where the story starts. So she arrives in that other kingdom and she tries to find the husband. And there's a lot of intrigue going on. It is a really fast-paced plot, I think. There are some slower moments, but generally it moves pretty fast. The reason why I think people struggle with this is the narrative style. So first of all, it's very character-driven. It's told from her perspective, so only from her perspective. And she tells it in a weird mix of while things are happening and then a little bit of in the future looking back. There's a lot of her thinking through things, a lot of her analyzing what happened in the past, a lot of her explaining and trying to think through why certain things happened the way they did and if she could have done things differently. And I ate this up. I loved this so much that I blew through this in, I think, 2 or 3 days. And then I picked up book 2 immediately. And that's the book that I'm in the middle of. And I already bought book 3 of the series as well. They are getting chunkier as we move along. But this was so incredible that I couldn't stop reading because I loved it end to end. There was nothing that I didn't like about it. So the 5 stars, as you can see. I enjoyed the character. I enjoyed reading about her struggling. I enjoyed that she is not portrayed as the perfect woman, but also not on the other side as a real terrible person. She is a person with real issues, with real struggles, with real feelings that because of the situation that she is in, has to maneuver around. And there are some side characters that help her on certain steps of her journey that are just so well written and so enjoyable to observe through her eyes. And I just could not put it down. I just could not. So this is why I do not understand that more people talk about it. If you have it at home and you have not picked it up, I highly recommend that you give it a try. And then, yeah, I mean, I already mentioned that I'm in the middle of book 2, which I started immediately after I finished that, but this week just has been so hectic. So I hope I can actually make a dent into this over this weekend and then over my holiday that I have. But this pretty much continues where book 1 ended. So I don't want to spoil anything, of course, but it continues in the same style, same writing, same narrative. And that leaves us with just one book that I still want to kind of cramp into February. And that is The Push by Ashley Audren. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this wrong, but this would be this book. And it's supposed to be, from what I heard, a really quick read. So I hope that I can do that over Sunday, Monday, hopefully. And this is more a horror or psychological thriller genre. And Jake compared it a little bit with Baby Teeth by Zoe Stage. If you've read that, I've talked about that a while ago. I'm hoping that I'm actually getting to that. I really want to. I really, really want to. How many books from female authors have you read in February? Did you join February She Wrote? Or even if you didn't, did you read books by female authors? And if yes, which ones? I want to know. Alrighty, thanks so much for watching, everyone. I know I really rambled on this time. Apologies for that. But you know, you didn't have a video in 2 weeks for me, so I had to catch up on things, right? Isn't that what you're supposed to do in every now and then on BookTube? I don't know. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day and that I'll see you soon with my next video. Bye!